Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are talking about crowdfunding role-playing games tonight, or this evening, whatever. And, well, the title is a bit leading, or the subtitle, How to Become a Millionaire. Well, that's not the main topic here, but it's kind of a joke you'll understand during the conversation, probably. Okay, but first, I'm Miska, I'm your host tonight, and I'd like to introduce our main guests here. We'll start here.
Hi there, everyone. Hi, I guess I got added to this panel a little bit last minute, so I'll just introduce myself. My name is Alex Roberts. Right now I'm working with Bully Pulpit Games, but I've kickstarted a bunch of games. I'm a writer and designer, tabletop and LARP games that I've helped on the marketing side have included Ghost Court from Bully Pulpit Games and the Yellow King role-playing game that Pelgrane funded last year. But most recently, I crowdfunded Starcrossed, the two-player game of Forbidden Love. And we did super well. We got 800% of our funding goal. And then I died. Thank you. So it was a heck of a ride, so I'm very eager to talk about it. Thanks.
Okay, my name is Jukka Sorsa, and some Finnish people may know me as a game designer for mostly Finnish games, but currently I'm working on some games in English, The Quick, and also Chtonian Highways. And I was a sort of producer for The Quick, and after the backing period of crowdfunding, I started to do all the communication at the Kickstarter page, because I was the second best option for that. But let's talk about that later.
Okay, I'm James Edward Radji IV. I'm publisher of Lamentations of the Flame Princess. These are some, but not all, of the role-playing titles I have successfully crowdfunded, and I've also made a lot of mistakes, so I will be your success story and cautionary tale.
I'm Petri Leinonen, and I'm a game designer and a long-time GM, and, well, a crowdfunder more than a crowdfunding campaign person. I'm one of those Kickstarter super backers, which means I've spent way too much money on Kickstarter. I also have been doing some consulting work for Finnish crowdfunding campaigns, mainly The Quick, where I was the person who made the crowdfunding plan for the campaign, but didn't actually participate in executing it during the campaign. And I've been helping Finnish board game designer group with their possible future crowdfunding campaign lately.
Okay, thank you all, and great to have you here. And it sounds like there's a good amount of knowledge and experience about crowdfunding from different perspectives there. So I guess we are going to have a good conversation. And let's start with the first topic or question. I've made these topics into kind of like a questions, and you can answer them however you like. And if you want to just discuss together, go on. And first of all, why crowdfunding? Why was that the option that you chose if you have run a campaign, or if you have been like a super backer, for example? It would be good to hear your why you like to back projects instead of just waiting until they are in the brick and mortar store and buy it from there.
Well, I can start. My work background actually comes from advertising, so I have some insight from that angle as well. Crowdfunding is a wonderful way to get people involved in the project, getting a feeling of having personally not just invested money, but in become part of the greater product, even if that feeling comes from leafing through the book and seeing your name printed on that long list of all the backers. There is a sense of being part of something greater when you are backing it instead of just buying it at the store 2 years later.
Okay, I first started doing crowdfunding because I wanted more and better art and hardcovers and just fancy books more than I could finance out of my pocket at the time. And then I went on to just be fascinated by the whole crowdfunding thing, so I started to do weird experiments. Crowdfunding, pay what you want for a physical book. Run, 12 or 20 campaigns simultaneously so people could vote on which adventures they wanted to be done. And, just things like that. And then I back a lot of Kickstarters, and it's just fascinating watching how they operate. So,
Where else the money gonna come from? Like, I really don't know. I think I'm maybe just part of that generation of indie publisher where it's almost the default. And sometimes you have to, cause I do consulting with other people's Kickstarters as well. Sometimes you really have to question people like, hey, do you have other options? Because this one's actually a lot of work. But for me, it's always just been, that's where money could come from if it's gonna come from anywhere. And coincidentally, unfortunately for me, it also happens to be a ton of fun. I really like the support that comes from being able to connect with people who are really excited about your game. That means you also open yourself up to people who are disappointed and people who are impatient or critical. That comes with the territory. But for the most part, people are stoked. And every time you post an update, or get in touch with your backers or email them, you get a little bit back that sometimes when you're publishing, and it takes a very long time, it's really nice to have that support from people.
Okay. One of the reasons we crowdfunded the Quick was that it's sort of a niche genre here in Finland. And if we would have paid all the money to print it and first sell it to Finnish crowd, we would have sold 100 copies or something. So we wanted to test it in a sort of international market, that if people are interested in that kind of game. So if you sell it worldwide, there are more potential customers for those kind of games, and you will get the money because if you print it first, then you have to send it to some other country so they can sell it there. It will be very expensive and a big risk.
Just a comment here that if you have any questions, please wait until the end, and we'll see how much we have time for questions, and we'll take them at the end. Right. Okay, let's move. In my personal opinion, crowdfunding has fundamentally changed how indie publishing works nowadays, especially in small markets like Finland, also in English, of course. Okay, what kind of crowdfunding services do you use, and is there any specific reasons why you have chosen those? This might be an obvious question for some people there in the panel, but for Finns, it's not so obvious.
Actually, for many years, Kickstarter wasn't available in Canada, where I'm from. So Indiegogo was the particular one that was really popular. We moved to I'm glad that Kickstarter is now available in Canada, just because to the American market, which is much, much bigger than the Canadian market, unfortunately, the Kickstarter is familiar, and so there's a sense of trust there. People already have Kickstarter accounts, they know how it works. So there's just kind of a smoothness to using it. Something that's been interesting is working with Bully Pulpit. We have a drip account now, which was a crowdfunding platform primarily for musical artists for a while, and Kickstarter recently acquired it, and now that it's kind of their competitor to Patreon. Bully Pulpit was thinking of are people here familiar with Patreon? Okay, cool. Bully Pulpit was thinking of setting up a Patreon for quite a while, and then we had that snafu a while ago where they abruptly changed their funding model, and everybody got super mad, and it was right when we were going to launch our Patreon. So we stopped and paused and took a quick look at other options. And because Drip is connected to Kickstarter, we said, well, you know, instead of being the last people on Patreon, let's be one of the first people on Drip. So things have been going really good there, actually. We basically release one small game a month and, you know, make about $1,500 or whatever it is. And so it gives us an outlet for Jason Morningstar, who's the lead designer at Bully Pulpit, for Jason Morningstar's weird, tiny games that are not going to make any money any other way. So we can let him keep making those, and it's a justifiable business venture. And it's a fun way to talk with fans too, and have that kind of be our dev blog for the Fiasco revision, other things like that. So Drip is a kind of new thing that we've been having fun with. I personally have a Ko-fi account. I don't know if people here use that at all. That's the kind of thing where you just put a ko-fi link on your website or on your Twitter feed or whatever, and people can buy you a coffee. They can just click here, there's $3. And it's $3 American, so it's worth a lot to a Canadian.
Sorry, please go on.
And that's been fun because it doesn't, it's not a lot, but every time I get it, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm a freelancer. I'm like, well, you know, instead of working from my little apartment, I'm going to go work in the cafe today.
By the way, how long has Kickstarter been available in Canada?
A couple of years. I don't know exactly how long. Not that long.
Okay, I was understanding that it was like the Kickstarter was available in North America basically from the start, but it obviously is not like that.
For a while we could back, but we couldn't start projects from Canada. But I think it's been there for 2 or 3 years, maybe a little bit more than that.
Okay, what about Sope?
That's me. That's my nickname, so just to clarify things. I hope it will be Kickstarter when we release something next for Finnish crowdfunding, but I don't have high hopes for that. So I had to search the market. Indiegogo, it has some problems now, I think with the PayPal or something. But I don't know about this mecenati, which is sort of, it's not, I don't know how it works. I have to find out if it's good or bad.
Well, how I understand it, mecenati is basically a Finnish crowdfunding service and works based on the principles that Finnish law requires, like there needs to be something that you acquire when you fund a project and so on. But basically the same principles as any crowdfunding.
But I don't know how popular is it, if it's easy to get money from.
Yeah.
But let's see.
Unfortunately, we couldn't get anyone who has experience on mecenati here. Maybe that tells something about its popularity.
Okay, I've used Indiegogo and Kickstarter. The Kickstarter I used through a proxy when I was doing a project that was going to be printed in the US, so it made sense to keep all the money there. My experience is I would have used Kickstarter every single time if that was an option here in Finland because it works so much better than Indiegogo.
From a backer perspective, Kickstarter reigns supreme of the current crowdfunding platforms. The way projects are presented and promoted within the platform is something that the other competitors cannot compete with at the moment. Also, I've had so many bad experiences with Indiegogo that I've set myself a rule that I don't back projects there unless they are very, very exemplar or something truly great, because if you want to do even the slightest things like change your pledge or cancel it, you have to jump through a million loops, whereas in Kickstarter it's just the press of one button. About Mesenatti, it's a nice Finnish platform. It goes with the Finnish laws, and it is very Finnish in the way that you can't find anything on it unless you know it from some other source. And when it comes to local platforms, it's when you're launching something in your native language, then that's a good option, going for Mesenatti or something else. But if you are going for a more international audience, then going for a local service is not a good idea, since how many here has gone to Brazil's premium crowdfunding site, catars.me, or the Australian one, possible.com, or was it co.au? I don't remember. But if there is a good project somewhere on a local site, then it has to be a local project. International projects need either Indiegogo or Kickstarter, since they are the international platforms at the moment.
Okay. Now that you've decided what platform to use and you have really like a purpose why to use it, what would be your recipe for the success? Like, what do you think are the key elements for a successful project? We'll get to some details later, so please just tell briefly what are the main things you think like make a good and successful project. Alex, can you start?
I like to quote Spike Trotman, who said that the recipe for success is like bear soup. The bear being your audience. And that is to say, there's lots of different recipes for bear soup. Once you get the bear, it's very, very easy. It's really the rest of it that's very hard. I think trying to fund your project starts a long, long time before your actual campaign. It starts right now, as soon as you even think that maybe you might want to someday do a project. Having an audience that cares about you and that is excited about what you're doing means that you can even do kind of a bad job and they'll forgive you. Like, doing a good job, that's great, but it gives you a lot of room for error. And really, if you have a big enough audience, you can probably meet people who have experience and they'll help you and teach you. So yeah, the recipe starts with the bear.
I have no freaking idea.
Yeah, you have to have some sort of audience first, because if you're an absolute nobody and then you put up a campaign saying, fund this thing that you'll get in the future, I don't see how that would be possible. So you need to develop an audience, whether you run a review site first or just really heavily involved in some online community or blogging or something that lets people know, that you exist, what you care about in gaming, and something that, somewhere where people know where to find you. So then when you finally do a project, you have some history and you have a communication point where people will already be looking at.
I agree fully on the audience. You need to have people, you need to have trust. In one way or another, you need to be a person or a company that has been proven to do something well. It doesn't have to be a Kickstarter project, but you need to have a name one way or another, or if you don't have a name, then you need to have some sort of proof that you are actually capable of doing this thing that you are saying that you want to do.
I just want to quickly add that, when we talk about an audience, you don't have to be a superstar, and you don't have to be a really cool person who's, on stream being really charismatic or whatever. You just need to be involved in some kind of community and contributing in some way. And if you're not already doing that, I don't know why not, right? You don't necessarily need to be in some sort of host of a whatever, but you're, active on forums, and you contribute to this particular thing. You answer people's questions about something online. People see your name crop up a lot in whatever, or you're often at cons, not being nice to people, just not being a jerk and stuff. That is the kind of thing that, like I said, it doesn't have to be another successful Kickstarter. It's just a basic level of trust.
Okay, now I have something. I saw a video of one unsuccessful crowdfunding campaign, and it had a general manager of the company walking towards the camera and drinking beverages and doing something. It felt really fake. They had a good game. I have played it with different platform. I think Miska knows what I'm talking about.
You're talking about.
And the video, it was like some consultant had told him to make that kind of video. He tried to be cool, but he's Finnish, so. And all the people were doing cool things in their company, like playing the game and writing with computer with very cool way, and I don't know.
Yeah, I must add that I think that the fakeness, that's a really poisonous thing in any crowdfunding video that you can have. The video can be, honestly, it can be a really crappy. But if you're a really what's it, aito, genuine. Yeah, genuine, and trust is a key thing there. If people can buy it, that okay, this guy really means it, and he's someone who I can trust. That's really meaningful. Yeah. Okay. We talked about trust, and I think this relates to that very well. What about communication and marketing? By communication, I mean, for example, if people comment your updates, how to answer them and so on, and if there's any meaning in the tone, or how quickly you answer and so on, there might be a difficult customers, so to say, or backers. So how to deal with those, and marketing, we are living in the age of a social media. Does that work, or is there any other ways to market your product? There was mentioned already that having some kind of a base audience, it's really important. But beyond that, James, could you start?
Okay, the first thing about difficult customers is there are two types of difficult customers. One that bring up actual issues that you need to deal with, and ones that are just assholes. And especially if they haven't given you any money yet, if someone's already being an asshole, you definitely don't want their money, because they'll just be worse afterwards. So, don't be afraid that you have to gather every penny you can. Because everything is going to be difficult enough as it is without somebody that doesn't know anything, that thinks they do, telling you how you should do things and what you should do and when. That does not work. So you have to know who to ignore, and who to actively tell to fuck off. And Yeah, but the ones that do bring up serious issues, listen to them and deal with the issues. Don't just pass it off until later, because they will never get dealt with and you'll always just have the same problem. You got to deal with the problems, and sometimes the problem is the customer or the prospective customer.
How would you differentiate an asshole from a customer with a real problem?
Well, hopefully you know what you're wanting to do and you have an idea of what you have to do. And the difference will be if somebody says something and you go, oh, I hadn't thought of that, then that's something you need to deal with. Even if you end up not agreeing with the customer, you have to figure out what your plan is or what your stance is and what they're asking. If it's something that you've already decided on, you know the direction you want to go in, and somebody is complaining, no, you're doing it wrong, you have to trust what you're doing. And if you've already made the decision, changing things in midstream or at the last minute because someone says, I don't like that's a bad idea.
For if I can provide an example, my game Starcrossed has cover art with two male characters gazing longingly into each other's eyes, and I had someone who again was not a backer just comment and say that to make sure that I had like another option for cover art for people with more traditional values. So there's no need to be rude to anyone. It takes a lot of work, so I could just say, we're very proud to have Jess Fink's art on our cover, and kind of just act like I didn't understand the question.
Yeah. If someone is wanting you to do something that you don't want to do, but they're being nice about it, you don't have to engage fully. You can just say, oh, yeah, no, we're doing our thing. You don't have to be nasty right back.
Yeah.
Just match the tone, but stand your ground.
Yeah. And it can sometimes be more frustrating if you continue to be nice. So there's something satisfying about that. And honestly, my favorite thing to do if someone has an issue or if they're struggling with something in public is to just let them know the company email. Or if it's your email, if you feel like giving that out, if you have like a project email, that's better than having your personal one out there. But to bring the complaint into a private place, unless it's something that you can immediately resolve by saying, we addressed that in the FAQ, or just go to this link, or it's in the first backer update. If it's anything that's going to be a little bit more work, or that is a more substantive criticism, my instinct is always to say, oh, thank you so much for letting us know. Just email us at such and such. Because then it takes a negative conversation off of your page, right? When people come to either your website or your Facebook page or your Kickstarter page or whatever, you don't want to see an argument or a complaint there, right? You want people to see something positive. So if people are saying something negative, even it could be totally valid criticism, but you want to bring it into private right away. That's my advice anyway.
I must say that that's an excellent advice. Keep that in mind. Those negative conversations, they can really drive the conversation into wrong tone and wrong direction in general. What about Petri and Sope? You both worked on Quick. Was there any such issues?
I don't know if it's the current topic, but it says communication. So when I say that I was the second best option for communicating, I meant that I was a producer. I was supposed to look at all the text and give feedback for editing and for the writers of the game. So when I had to start dealing with the communication of Kickstarter, it took some time from me to do the producing thing. So I think the first option is either to have some kind of plan if you do it alone. So you will have the game ready when you do the crowdfunding, so you can focus on communication for the whole time. or if you have to write the game after the crowdfunding, then you should have some, I don't know, outsider, but someone who's not writing or doing the layout or anything for the game, someone who understands what's going on and working solely on the communication.
Yeah. Well, that was about to be my like a next question related to this topic. Still, I've run only like Finnish crowdfunding projects, and out of the few hundred people that have backed my projects, I've got like maybe 5 comments. So I've heard that it takes
Finnish.
Yeah, I've heard that it takes a bit more time with the international projects to keep in touch with people, answer comments, and so on. So I don't know how to formulate this question well, but how well you need to be prepared, in your opinion, for keeping in touch with people, answering their questions and so on.
There is a continent west from Europe. Some call it New World. I don't want to name the continent, but there are people there, and they are very eager to know what's going on, and it's not easy to communicate to them in Finnish style with one word. Like they ask with whole sentence, and I say yes or something, and so or if you don't answer, because it's like, okay, this is obvious, I don't have to answer that. So after 2 days, you will get, yeah, sorry, I'm finished. Because it's like, okay, I don't have to answer.
Well, at least that's very efficient. James.
Yeah, I've taken that Finnish style of, oh, that's obvious, or I don't have anything to add, or that just sounds like a complaint, not a question. I mean, I'm accessible. I show up at all these conventions around Europe, and I'm online on my social media all the time, and people ask me questions there, and that's a lot easier than, to me, the actual crowdfunding site, and this is probably horrible customer service, but the crowdfunding site is where to collect the money. And especially through Indiegogo, there is no, there is no update just for backers, so everything becomes public.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Why? It's so obvious to have it.
So if I want to communicate with just the backers, then I gotta, just send a mass email with everybody BCC'd, and so I really hate using the crowdfunding platforms for communication. And I understand sometimes it's necessary, but a lot of the times it's just, it's the worst possible place for me to try to communicate with people.
So this is my deal. This is my jam. I actually just started working with Evan Turner and Kat Jones, working on the crowdfunding plan for their LARP Slayer Cake, which I don't know if anyone here is, but it's awesome. It's the heavy metal LARP. It's totally sweet. So they specifically hired me because they're like, we love this game. We want it out in the world. We do not want to have to talk to people and stuff. Because, I love just replying to comments and getting out there and chatting with people, starting discussions on Twitter while things are happening, sending out backer updates with questions in them, because it just keeps people actively excited about things. And I find that if I'm getting questions about how things are going, like with Starcrossed, I've gotten 1 or 2 comments like, oh, hey, just wondering how things are going. And that immediately makes me go like, oh no, I'm a terrible crowdfunder. My poor backers, they're so confused. When really most people are like, don't talk to me until, like, I just want to get the game 2 years later and forget I even funded it. So I think I err more on the other side, but I do think there's a lot of value in being proactive, in giving people an update that depends on how long your timeline is. You know, like if it's going to be 2 years until they see the thing, you don't need to talk to them every week, but maybe every month or every other month, or once every important milestone. I think if you have like a cool picture or something to show people, just to remind them that, you know, you're not dead, it's happening, it's all okay. So proactive is cool, but I actually stand behind replying to every comment. And maybe that is not a good use of my time, and I overextend a little, but I literally reply to every single comment and tweet that people send at me about it.
I can give you an example of about those Western continent people, because when we write an update that we are writing the game, we will contact you when something is done. And next month, someone will write, can we get an update? So it's like, why? We told you we are writing the game, so... This week, I wrote 3 words.
I thought about all the stuff I should be doing on this project during this time. Really hard.
Yeah, and from the backer perspective. Active communication is really, really important, and keeping people up to date on where the project is going is, well, it's a courtesy call, since these are people who have backed you both on monetary level and also on the mental level. They're rooting for you. They are the people who want to see this succeed. And from this sort of point of view, a pro tip to anyone making a Kickstarter campaign or a crowdfunding campaign: there are certain milestones that you know you will eventually meet if the crowdfunding goes according to plan. You will reach a halfway point. You hopefully will reach a point where the campaign is funded. These are all things that you can at least write a rough sketch for the sort of press release that you will give to the backers when these certain milestones happen during the campaign. You should do those before you do the campaign if you are running it alone while you're writing the game, because all the communication you have to do improvised during the campaign is going to still be there, and you still need to do these regular okay, yes, we've now reached 25% of our backer goal. Here are some beautiful pictures from the book type of things that are sort of guaranteed to go live during the campaign no matter what. So be prepared beforehand, and after... I don't really need an update every month. I don't need an update every half year in some projects. I don't want to name any. But if the previous update has been that, okay, we're doing this and we should have it ready quickly, or we should have it a preview for you to see in a few weeks, then in a few weeks I will start wondering, since the crowdfunder has promised me something. So it goes both ways. You need to talk to the people and let them talk to you. You don't really need to answer them. Oh God, I'm finishing that way.
Okay. Should we promise something?
I think, well, at least one thing per crowdfunding project.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this will lead us to the next topic pretty well. And we are running out of time, and there's one topic that I really would like to cover. And I would like to actually stack it together with another topic. Okay.
Okay.
Most common mistakes and what to like really avoid. Well, not what like not ever, never ever to do. And I would like to stack this together with fulfillment. Like if there's anything like oh fuck, I promised them like a poster, and that's really expensive to post, for example, or ship, for example. Like any good examples or like a good advice what really to avoid and yeah. You
Okay.
can start.
Okay, everyone get off your phones. You in the back, wake up. This is the most important thing about crowdfunding. You really need to pay attention to this one. If you're offering international shipping, if you're offering, for international backers that they can back your thing and you're expected to get your game, never, ever, ever collect the expected shipping cost at the time of the campaign. Don't do it, because you are just going to get screwed on the back end. For example, Finland, I think it was just last month, they got rid of the economy class for maxi letters for shipping. So if that's what you were counting on to ship, all your crowdfunding rewards, your shipping costs have just doubled, both I think within and going out of the country. A few years back when Ron Edwards did his Sorcerer reprint, the international shipping costs going from the US to everywhere else doubled. And he ended up losing money from every single backer, that backed from outside the United States. So what you definitely want to do is be very upfront that this is what you're doing, back the basic thing, and then collect the shipping costs at the time you're going to be shipping so you know how much that's going to cost. Especially if you're offering stretch goals, especially if, like what I do, I budget for a 32-page softcover thing and end up, producing a 128-page hardcover, and I've had to cover the shipping cost on that difference, and you might not be able to cover that without going broke. So collect your shipping cost at the time you're going to ship, tell your backers that's what you're going to do, and you will save yourself by doing that.
I'm very glad you said that, because I could have said that, and instead I'll just say the regular T-shirt thing. Don't do T-shirts. Don't be a fool.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Be really careful about all the physical stretch goals that you start promising, because even if you get the shipping costs done after, and especially if you have made the mistake of bundling your shipping costs into your Kickstarter sum, then everything that comes as a stretch goal that is physical will increase the shipping cost, because you have to physically ship the thing to another country. PDF is a fine form of stretch goals, really, people.
Yeah, don't do mugs, don't do anything fragile, don't do posters.
And remember how excited, if people are excited about the game, then remember that a fine stretch goal is to just make the game cooler in some way, right? You're adding more art, you're adding an additional chapter, you're bringing on, a guest writer for, to do the foreword or afterword or some other cool thing. Put the spot varnish on the cover. People love that stuff. Make it out of a nicer binding, whatever. Make the actual game better. People are jazzed about that because they like your game. That's why they are giving you money.
Yep, and there are like a lot of options to like how to pimp your book. Like there are these the piece of straw, the string that you
Bookmark ribbon.
Bookmark ribbon, yeah, and like there's those like varnish things and so on. So like consider those before like adding any specific merchandise, for example. Like if you need to suddenly produce one piece of something, that might get really expensive. Although they are like usually good. Anyway, like in advance, like see how much things cost before promising it.
Sewn bindings for your hardcovers.
Yeah. And one more thing, I'd like to personally add. In Finland, we have this it's like quite cheap price to ship, a book if it's under 3 centimeters, so it like fits from the door, the post?
Mail slot.
Mail slot. And if you suddenly happen to do something that James mentioned, that your 30-page book becomes like quite much thicker and with hardcovers and so on, and it suddenly with the packaging it doesn't fit through the 3 centimeter slot, that might get like a much more expensive. Okay, I think that those are the main topics, and we are basically out of time. Nobody has driven us out of here yet, so I think we have time for a few more questions if you happen to have.
Great. Actually, a question for Alex. You said you know at the beginning you try to entice people, the audience, your community, from scratch from the get-go. My question is I've actually done an Indiegogo project before, with actual technological projects, and everybody always told me that it goes by thirds. First third at the beginning, then second third in the middle, and the third in the end. And that's how you get your funding. But my question is, what were your kind of success factors in terms of enticing your community in the very beginning, other than just being nice to people and being active in forums? But when you actually had your project in mind and you actually had something, we're actually going to do this, did you have a launching event when you had your project going, when you launched your project? Or what kind of things you did when you launched your project to communicate, to entice, to make your community active and buy in the very beginning to get the momentum going?
Well, I think there was a very, very long period of talking about how it was going to be soon. So rather than, launching your Kickstarter tomorrow and then starting to get in touch with, then talking about it on Twitter and getting in touch with media people and getting in touch with actual play podcasts and that kind of thing. I was running Starcrossed at conventions for a year or two before it was on Kickstarter, and there was an actual play out there, on Friend of a Friend's podcast, maybe 6 months before, and I was doing interviews in the month leading up to it. And also, from completely unrelated projects that I was doing, I was building a following on Twitter and, talking to people on Facebook and that kind of thing. But also, I think it's important that none of that was a grand master plan to just eventually cash in on that, right? People know when you're just networking to eventually get money from them. You want to actually build relationships of mutual trust, right? And so I think that's really important. But overall, just talking about it, whether it's on Twitter or wherever else is your most kind of go-to communication venue, talking about it well in advance of your launch date, so that when your launch date comes around, it's not a surprise to anybody. It's like, it's going up today, and then you already have people who are going to advocate about your project on your behalf. Once you have, if you can have fans before the thing even exists, you're in very, very good shape. And that's much easier to do if you already have projects that have been successful in the past. But you don't need to have crowdfunded stuff in order to have things that people are excited about.
Okay, one more really quick question. Did you have a question?
What's your view on services like BackerKit?
BackerKit.
Worth it?
I've never used it.
BackerKit is one of those, do I want to pay someone to do the stuff that will take me time, or do I have the time to do it myself, sort of things, from my perspective. Or if you have a back catalog of products that you could ship while you are selling your new product through Kickstarting campaign, then BackerKit comes viable, or really if you don't want to do all the hassle, they cut the difficulty.
Yeah, by the way, if you're considering BackerKit, they might offer you the first project free, so ask that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's something that you need to build into your budget, right, and not have it be an extra expense on top. It is kind of a calculation you need to make, but I would seriously say, especially that last point, that if you have other products, if you have a back catalog, especially if you kind of need to clear out the warehouse and some of them are just taking up space, it's super, super, super good for that. You would be really surprised how many people will load up their stuff. They're like, well, while I'm here, I'll add whatever other games, which is great.
Okay, yeah, we need to finish here, and thank you all for participating. Thank you for joining the panel, and that was a great discussion and very good points, I think. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you for moderating.